We're all aware of our past, how our profession started, our origin story. Everything has to start somewhere. But that's not why I'm here today. Rather, I'm here to talk to you about what should matter to all of us. Where are we going? I'm sure Dee Dee and BJ Palmer and the others whose shoulders we all stand on would want to see what we're up to these days, don't you? Based on what I've read about them, they would love to be witnessing the current evolution of our profession. Considering everything that is happening in our space globally, I think our patients, third-party payers, governments, and many others are interested too. Storytelling is ubiquitous in humanity. It is part of our nature. It is at least part of how we, Homo sapiens, have evolved successfully. Storytelling has given rise to things like fun childhoods and enjoyable campfires, but also long-lasting records of human endeavors like history, education, literature, fiction, and entertainment, even science and its fundamental building block, research. I decided to employ a literary analogy as I developed this talk, and I hope you'll indulge me. I know many of you may not have ever thought of chiropractic in this way. Hi, I'm Dr. Shawn Thistle, and thank you for joining me for Rising Action, Why Chiropractic's Next Act Really Matters. Every profession, including ours, has an evolving story to tell the world. How we originated or developed, the schooling required to enter our profession, the day-to-day details of what we do, and how that ultimately impacts society and the patients we serve. We are all part of this story, so how is it shaping up for us so far? I'll spoil it for you folks, the movie has already started. We're through the first few chapters at least. So what happened in our first act that shaped our present, but more importantly, how we can now respond and evolve to positively impact our future and society in general? That's the goal in healthcare, isn't it? From a technical literary perspective, this is how most stories, movies, books, and plays are structured. I'll talk briefly about our first act in a moment, but I thought facing forward into our second act would be most beneficial. Normally in a movie, for example, the second act is about twice as long as the first act. This is where Rising Action, the title of this talk, occurs. It is when the protagonist or main character, that's us, must deal with some obstacles and perhaps even a disaster or two that must be overcome. I'm not sure we've experienced a disaster, so to speak, but I think you'll agree that we've certainly dealt with our fair share of negativity and challenges over the years. The second act is considered the point of no return in the story, a point where there is no going back. Make no mistake about it, chiropractic is here to stay, but our future is still largely unknown. This part of our second act, our rising action, is where I think we are now, and I'm going to tell you why that's a good thing. As I said earlier, I'm not here to give you a history lesson, so we'll be largely facing forward today. First, we have to remember that our profession is young compared to many others, and it's easy to forget this. With that said, it's been quite a ride so far, hasn't it? Our first act was certainly an eventful one. For our purpose today, let's call everything up until 15-20 years ago, when we literally survived on the shoulders of giants, our first act. We were introduced to the world, fought for what we believed in, and managed to set the stage for where we are now. Imagine just for a moment trying to start a profession. The good news at that time is that healthcare was still figuring itself out, so to speak. Healers were the gold standard and virtually any idea was accepted and tested in the real world, largely without the luxury of modern scientific rigor or even logical scrutiny in some cases. Evidence-based medicine wasn't the default, respected model that it is today, and that helped us in some ways, I suppose. For the sake of simplicity, this was our start, the Green Books. They were the script for our opening act. It's where we got started. It was our introduction to the world. They were actually extremely progressive for their time if you consider the general state of knowledge regarding health, medicine, anatomy, physiology, and so on. Pioneering work full of really good ideas. To put this in perspective, the germ theory was brand new at that time. They also thought X-rays were good for your skin. They're not. And they also thought women, specifically who rode bicycles, would permanently distort their faces. So, spinal function impacting health was certainly not too far out there for the time, was it? It still isn't, for the record. However, things change and evolve as we know, including knowledge and science pertaining to chiropractic. Put simply, we should respect this original work, but put it in the proper historical context where it belongs. At one point, imagination outpaced science, but this is not necessarily true anymore. Our second act, let's call it contemporary or modern chiropractic for the sake of argument, has been firmly supported by our scientific revolution. But it shocks me when some in our profession profess the green books to represent our only scientific standard, never mind a contemporary one. I think those who wrote the books would disagree with this notion, don't you? It is to me our greatest irony regarding our internal struggle as a profession. At this point, we have to confidently, yet carefully, untether our chiropractic souls from our history. This is naturally making some of our colleagues uncomfortable. There is some resistance, as you may have heard. I recognize that letting go of long-held beliefs is challenging. It creates cognitive dissonance and self-doubt. But I also think the rest of us shouldn't wait around for the lingering minority within our profession to catch up. The rest of us have decided to move on. Overall, let's choose progress over unity. When I originally created this talk for the Norwegian Chiropractic Association's annual general meeting in 2019, I was given one instruction: to make chiropractors happy to be chiropractors. It's not always as easy as it sounds. The most inspiring part of our current second act is that the pieces are aligning perfectly for us. I have great news. There has never been a better time to be a chiropractor. Did you know that? We are now enjoying a unique confluence of really important forces that are opening doors for us locally and globally. This includes, of course, the unprecedented awareness and acknowledgement of the burden of musculoskeletal conditions, including spinal pain. It also means with an aging population that the demand for our services will certainly keep increasing. As we'll talk about throughout this talk, we have increasing research support for what we do, and there's a general push in society for improved public health. We fit perfectly into that model. We'll also discuss briefly some shortcomings of traditional models of care. I think most of us could agree that spinal pain and its associated conditions are our best strength, right? It just so happens that this is where the largest part of the MSK burden resides. Spine pain, as you know, is extremely common and costly, and the world is starting to pay attention in a bigger way. This, in my opinion, is great news for us as chiropractors, but we have to approach this properly to ensure the best outcomes for our patients and our profession. The spine pain crisis and the pain crisis in general is a main component of the rising action portion of our story. It is collectively our greatest opportunity, but no opportunity comes without challenges. Recently, in 2018, a landmark collection of papers on back pain was published in The Lancet, one of the most widely read journals on the planet. Chiropractors were not only primary contributors to this work, front and center in fact, but our clinical approach was widely supported and recommended. In combination with some other research areas we'll touch on later, our research landscape has never been stronger. But in progress remains the sign on the door for a lot of this work, so to speak, and we just have to be okay with that. Some things take time, and we'll talk more about that a bit later. We have a lot more work to do. Just recently, some of the authors from those very same Lancet papers wrote an update paper in pain. Let's just call it a gentle reminder to the global healthcare system to pick up the pace a little bit on implementing the science on back pain. Good news again, folks, we can help. To be clear, I don't wish failure upon any profession, individual, or intervention. But a fortunate aspect for us in the evolution of knowledge about musculoskeletal conditions is the general failings of more traditional models of managing pain, and spine pain specifically. The world is in the midst of an opioid crisis, you're likely aware of this, and COVID has made it worse. These pills kill literally thousands of people every year globally and are highly addictive. And, based on Cochrane-level evidence, these pills don't even outperform sugar pills for chronic pain patients. What? Now let's be clear, when employed correctly and judiciously, they can be very effective. Unfortunately, as we know, this isn't the norm. Most of you watching this have probably seen the devastating effects of these medications in some of your patients. Spinal injections haven't had a great run either recently, with their general efficacy in question and their benefit recognized for only some patients, who have failed conservative care first in most cases. They are not a first-line option for back pain. Surgery is in the same situation. You may have heard that arthroscopic procedures for things like cranky knees and pinchy, grindy shoulders are really no better than other, more conservative treatment options, including placebo surgery in some cases. In the spine, the story is largely the same. Generally speaking, even for disc patients, the long-term outcomes are equivalent to conservative management. Also, as you know, surgery is very expensive and carries a higher risk of severe adverse events. The key to all of this is to implement the right intervention for the right patient at the right time. This is everyone's challenge these days. It's not unique to chiropractic, and it's hard to study too. One thing that is becoming crystal clear in the literature is that there is no one intervention that wins. No one intervention consistently performs superiorly to others. Recent clinical guidelines for neck pain, back pain, and other conditions like osteoarthritis are recommending individualized care packages versus standalone interventions. This makes some clinicians nervous, but I think it reflects exactly what we should be doing in clinical practice, addressing the individual patient in front of us. It is our job to determine what combination of treatment interventions they would benefit from the most, whether it's spinal mobilization or manipulation, exercise in its many forms, mobility work or range of motion interventions, nutritional counseling or changes to their diet and lifestyle, mindfulness, sleep hygiene, occupational or ergonomic advice. The list is long, and we have many tools in our clinical toolbox. We have to meet patients where they are, be caring doctors, and deploy individualized, reasonable treatment plans. This is evidence-based chiropractic. Being an evidence-based profession comes with two unique challenges. First is implementing new evidence. We'll talk more about that as we go. The second is de-implementing older, ineffective practices. This is our new reality and responsibility. Behaving in this manner will show the world we are serious about our progress and the health of humanity. In my opinion and the opinions of our leading researchers, this is our only way forward. On Monday morning, you will all go back to do what you do best. This. Let science support you, not intimidate you. Spider-Man doesn't fight crime in small towns. It's a simple fact from the comic book world. He's got nowhere to shoot his webs. He needs some tall buildings. To be heroes, we have to go where the problems are and figure out where and how we can help. For chiropractic, this means maintaining awareness of societal needs, like effective management of spinal conditions and other MSK issues, and what our patients want: healthy aging, movement and exercise strategies, and pain relief. We should be particularly mindful of this when we consider what topics draw negative media attention towards our profession. If we focus on the wrong aspects of what we think we can do for people, even if those topics are of interest to us, we may become as irrelevant as a lifeguard at an Olympic swimming pool. Seriously, why are they there? Data exists showing us exactly why patients see us and what they value in a healthcare encounter. It is our responsibility as a profession to heed this data and adjust our professional behavior and service offerings accordingly. So, the million-dollar question: how do we get there? How do we elevate our profession? I believe one of the key factors is to reduce the friction of knowledge transfer. Science is science, and we are not exceptional. But research is utterly pointless unless someone, all of us, read it and integrate it into our collective clinical acumen. As I've seen throughout my career, I think we are in the midst of renovating our relationship with research. But do we go down to the studs, or will a simple paint job suffice? We used to be on the fringe of healthcare, on the outside looking in. We were different. Science, in many cases our own science, has allowed us into the club, so to speak, but I truly believe we can keep our identity and individuality as a profession while we're there. But how do we approach this relationship? For some practitioners, ongoing knowledge integration is totally new, and when they started practicing, chiropractic research, and healthcare research for that matter, wasn't really a thing yet. Inherent upon us is a responsibility to research what we do as a profession and as clinicians. For this, it takes people, dedicated men and women, to commit to at least a partial career in research. We have to support them collectively. Bamboo takes years to grow roots, but then it can shoot up 90 feet in a matter of 6 weeks. It's really incredible. Our chiropractic research capacity has followed a similar trajectory. It certainly took us a while to get going, didn't it? We had to lay our foundation, but now we're expanding rapidly for a profession our size. It's really encouraging to see the growing number of young career researchers in our profession that are just doing wonderful work. So, one of our key questions is, what should our researchers work on? One of our main challenges is to unravel the components of a chiropractic clinical encounter that matter. We offer such a unique experience that is personable, customizable to the individual. It involves human touch, which doesn't happen much in medicine anymore. It's delivered in a comforting, relaxing, and welcoming environment, and it also involves the exchange of money in most cases. All of these factors can have a huge influence on treatment outcomes. So from a research perspective, sometimes choice is difficult. With a growing but still limited chiropractic scientific workforce, we do have some decisions to make. Where should our priorities lie for funding and conducting research, and how do we approach this? I've always thought of how we should appreciate research from two angles, starting with a global 30,000-foot view, so to speak. This is an overview and a general awareness of what is happening in the literature and in healthcare. This photo is from a coffee table book that I have called Overview by Benjamin Grant. They're photos taken from satellites in space. From this 30,000-foot or more perspective, we're seeing a great need for the effective treatment of pain and MSK conditions. We need continued work on cost effectiveness, the impact on healthcare systems, and population and public health. These topics may seem tangential to us as individuals sometimes, but they are of critical importance for our profession. So that's the broad view stuff very quickly. The second way to look into research is the deep dive, intimately understanding a topic and how the specific methodology of science should impact how we interpret the results. Modern technology and a growing yet still insufficient scientific workforce in chiropractic has begun exploration in numerous areas that will impact our profession and patient care. Significant advances have been made on the clinical side of things, demonstrating that chiropractic care is an effective treatment option for low back and neck pain, two of the most disabling conditions on earth. Other areas of interest are the mechanisms underpinning manual medicine, specifically spinal manipulation or the adjustment. Deeper topics can also include the specifics. Which technique is superior? How often should we treat patients and over what time frame? How and when do we integrate exercises and which ones do we utilize? And so on. There's so much to work on and so much to look forward to from a research perspective. In many ways, we're just getting started. As alluring and important as research is, we must continuously strive to achieve balance and remember that it is but one component of the evidence-based medicine paradigm, sharing the spotlight with clinical experience and patient desires and values. As a profession, we have millions of collective data points that help us in practice every day. Those data points with big data integration and evaluation will soon help us from a research perspective as well. We also have the luxury of time and communication, which allows us to simply ask our patients about what is important to them, their preferences, expectations, concerns, previous experiences, and so on. These are very powerful and important advantages in modern healthcare that we need to leverage moving forward. Science is an interesting thing, at least to me and I think some others as well. As I've discovered throughout my career, chiropractic tends to have a love-hate relationship with science. We absolutely love it when it confirms our opinions, biases, or observations. But when it doesn't, we simply like to ignore it sometimes or call it flawed. I call this fair weather research consumption, and I don't think it's productive. We like to be in bed with research, but then occasionally we fart under the sheets. Let's get back to business. Our acceptance of science as a primary path forward means we have to accept a few things. First, when judiciously conducted, science doesn't care about our feelings nor our professional biases. We know that evidence can confirm our beliefs and observations, but the reverse is not necessarily true. We also have to accept across the board that beliefs are not more important than facts. This could be applied to many things in our society these days. If we hold our beliefs or biases above science, we will be cast to the fringe of modern healthcare. I don't think this is the place for us, so let's choose science over censorship and once again, progress over unity. The World Federation of Chiropractic has, in my opinion, been a recent strong leader in illuminating our path forward. A recent example is their 20 position statements that outline how we can define our great profession, as well as their Be Epic campaign. This campaign highlights our strengths and also challenges us to continue evolving. EPIC stands for evidence-based, people-centered, interprofessional, and collaborative. This, folks, is our second act, our rising action, and our way forward. Truly embodying these principles and being epic may not come naturally for us, but we already do a lot of these things. It is the future of healthcare, one that includes chiropractors prominently. It is possible for us to continue growing and doing good work. We just have to check our egos, play nicely with others, and keep our attention focused squarely on what matters, our patients. Much of our progress happens outside your office, but it's on you to know what's happening out there so you can leverage it to benefit your patients and your practice. We have to accept personal and collective responsibility for knowledge transfer. We simply can't rely on the researchers to do it all themselves. We have to responsibly consume their work. After all, research is useless without a captive audience. Consuming and integrating research into your practice is not easy and can certainly feel like some heavy lifting, to be sure. We don't just finish learning when we graduate, do we? In 2006, I started RRS Education with the goal of helping busy clinicians like you integrate research into their patient care. We feature weekly research reviews of important science that can help you with your patient care and your practice, and a subscription is required for that. We also offer online courses and our new format of e-seminar, which are video-based instructional courses with extra materials, patient demonstrations, interactive clinical vignettes, and so on. I encourage you to check it out at www.rrseducation.com. Now, I don't profess to have all the answers about knowledge transfer and integrating the vast volume of science into daily practice, but I can certainly help patch some of the holes to ensure we're using information properly. When I first started the research reviews through RRS Education, I was afraid there wouldn't be enough research to review. Now I have the exact opposite problem. Recently on RRS Education, we've reviewed the following topics: sentinel headaches and how they are a warning sign for a stroke in progress, non-operative management of lumbar disc herniation, diagnosis and management of cervical spondylotic myelopathy, contextual factors in clinical encounters and how that matters to patient outcomes, facial pain differential diagnosis, how lumbar spinal stiffness interacts with pain and disability in a low back pain population, and more. As you can see, there's something for everyone, and I just need a few minutes of your time every week. You can read the reviews online or listen to them in your ears. There's more good news here, and I certainly don't mean this to minimize our important job as clinicians, but being a good doctor isn't necessarily rocket science. Be kind, attentive, listen well, and make patient-centered decisions informed by evidence. We have the luxury of time, cost, value, and attention to give our patients. Let's collectively leverage these opportunities. I think we are at a critical juncture in our professional story right now. As the plot unfolds around us, our second act, or rising action, is a crucial step in our continued journey in a global, interdisciplinary healthcare environment. Fake it till we make it is no longer an option, if it ever was. The world operates in an economy of information, and in healthcare, the primary currency is research. We have to accept this and behave and contribute accordingly. Let's not be a fake news profession. There's enough of that crap going around these days already. Let's envision a metaphorical sandbox of healthcare, evidence, and professional behavior. How do we play there? Let's face it, nobody wants to play with the kid who's eating sand and screaming in the corner. Our demeanor in the healthcare sphere has never been more important. We must be confident but collaborative, helpful but humble. The rest of the world is watching us from the playground. So how do we take advantage of our rising action and translate it into chiropractic standing out in the healthcare landscape? In many ways, our path forward starts with all of you as individuals. It's about what you do with your patients every day. Individual clinical encounters build our cultural authority. Cultural authority generally refers to what the average person might say at a cocktail party when you tell them you're a chiropractor. We all know that conversation goes one of two ways, doesn't it? Each time you see a patient, if you pretend that later that day they'll be telling this story to someone at a cocktail party, how might you change your behavior? This should go without saying, but I think everyone should enjoy what they do. Every day in practice isn't perfect, and we all know that, but our personal attitudes and demeanors can really have a positive impact on our patients. Happy doctors with happy staff and a nice relaxing environment lead generally to happy patients. Think about this every day you go into your office, and I promise you that you will be on your way to success before you even touch your patients. The lens through which you see the world is now known to affect just about everything. But how can we optimize the lens through which people view the chiropractic profession? In my opinion, everyone watching this video can contribute to our second act and push our rising action in the right direction. In large part, this will determine the legacy of our profession for the next generation of doctors who will see us into the future. We should continue to respectfully tip our hat towards our past, our first act, remember, but keep laser focused on what lies in front of us and ahead of us. In a very short period of time, we have evolved from scarcity to relative abundance from a research capacity. Both have their unique challenges, but the current situation is much more preferable. When you reach the end of your chiropractic career and look back, what would you like to see? What is your legacy that is part of our legacy that we leave for future chiropractors and the patients we serve? I think our second act, what we're living in right now, will become the gift we deliver to future generations of chiropractors. We will have opened the doors, endured change, and become better for it. What is our ultimate role in human health, the healthcare landscape globally, and the future of our profession? 50 years ago, chiropractors had basically one option after graduation: going into clinical practice. As time goes on, career diversity is growing in ways that can only help our profession, never mind the diversity within the profession itself. Look at me. I don't practice much anymore and get to focus on knowledge transfer, teaching, speaking, advocacy work, and consulting. Not all of those were on my radar when I graduated 16 years ago. At this point, I am certain that our new, younger chiropractors have so much to look forward to. There is a bright future ahead. Professional identity arises from the commitment to be something, not just do things. Being in motion and taking action are two different things. I firmly believe now is the best time to be a chiropractor. Momentum is on our side in so many ways, and the actions we take, the work we put in, and the patients we serve will be our way forward. Our second act is happening right now, our rising action, and it's full of both progress and opportunity. Not only do we get to use our hands, but our future is largely and uniquely in our hands in more ways than one. That is truly a unique gift our profession should treasure. Let's make this second act count. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoyed this talk. If you have any questions about this session or anything else that I offer through RRS Education, please feel free to reach out to me directly anytime. In these challenging times, I wish you and your family the best of health, happiness, and prosperity as we look forward to brighter days ahead. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.